Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Rosie, and if you are new here, please do consider subscribing. So today's video is something that I haven't done in a little while, and it's to talk about photography and in particular Lightroom. So I'm going to show you a preset that I created when I was in Peru. It's kind of a travel preset, so it's ideal for buildings and potentially landscapes as well. It's not so much based on portraits because it's a little bit harsh, I find, a little bit too contrasty for portraits. But it's something that I think works really well with buildings, with cars, with kind of street photography. It's quite gritty, it's maybe slightly vintage, it's kind of raw and authentic. It's not a super polished preset. It's something that I think shows more of like a real and raw and authentic side of a photograph. If that makes zero sense, I completely understand. But what I'm going to do anyway is talk you through all of the settings for this preset in particular, and then talk to you how you can create this preset and then how you can adjust it for your photographs as you're editing your own work. So I have my list of settings here. So I'm going to go through them one by one and explain kind of what each one does and why I use them. But this is the preset that I've been using for all of my Peru photographs that I've been posting over the past 5 months now, something like that. And I might tweak them ever so slightly. So some of my yellow photographs, I maybe add more yellow and orange tones. Maybe some of the blue sky ones, I might take away the blue or add more blue. So I might change the colors slightly, but this is the basis, like the base preset that I use. And then I might alter certain things depending on the photograph. So I'm going to screen record my computer and show you exactly what I'm doing step by step, so you can see and you can follow along with me and save this preset and use it for yourself. Okay, so I'm screen recording my laptop now, and as you can see, I've just put on here how many 14 photographs from my travels. So there's a range of different ones here. There's some surfboards and a car, there's some buildings, there's a street vendor, there's some yellow buildings, some pink buildings, a close-up, and there's also a picture of Jeremy at the end. So I'm going to show you this preset on Jeremy and how it probably doesn't work for people. So let's start with the first one, why not? So this is the preset that I'm going to be showing you how to use. It's this one. So you can kind of see it makes it a little bit grungy, a little bit dirty almost, a little bit worn, a little bit vintage. If we press that and then down here, you can see the before and after. So it's not a drastic change. I'm not, it's not super dramatic and super edited that people are going to be like, oh my God, that looks nothing like the original. I think it still looks pretty similar. It's just got a bit more texture and a bit more grit to it. So if I undo that, and I'm going to show you step by step how we achieve that look. So we're going to start off with the basic settings. So I'm going to walk you through every setting that I use, and then at the end, like I said, you can change the warmth and the exposure and the colours and things like that. This is just going to be the basic settings. So what I do is I bump my contrast up to +20. I bring my highlights down, -50. I bring my shadows up +30. Again, this doesn't have to be exact. This is just the settings that I've found that work. You can obviously try these and then change them all at the end. I keep saying that, but it's very important that you take this and then do your own version of it. Take your own twist on it and do your version. The blacks, we're going to bring down -20. So this isn't an exact sport. You can put 25, 19, it doesn't really matter. This is just the settings that I have. Okay, next up, we're going to do texture. We're going to put up 50. And now this is the part where I think it doesn't work very well for portraits because you're adding texture and people don't particularly want texture in their faces. And we're going to do the same with clarity. We're going to pump that up to +50 as well. And then the saturation here, we're going to do -20. And this is where you get that kind of vintagey feel, that kind of worn away a little bit. And this is where afterwards you can start adding back colour depending on which photograph you're working on. So we're not going to touch the tone curve, we're going to go to the HSL and colour. So if we start with the H, which is the hue, we're going to move the yellow -40. So that's going to get any yellow tones slightly more orange shade. We're going to do the blue -10. So again, that's any kind of blue shades are going to go slightly more aqua shade. Let's move on to saturation. And we're going to do the blue +40. So +40. And we're going to go on to luminance and do the blue -20. So that's going to make the blues a little bit darker. Now that might not specifically alter the photograph that you're working on. It's not changing too much of this photograph, but it does work later on in my other photographs. I'll be able to show you that later on. So we're done with that one. Next up is the colour grading. So this is something I've only started doing in the past couple of years. I completely ignored this for a long time, started playing about with it, and I really enjoy it. So this particular preset, again, you can play about with it as you want to. So for this particular preset, I put the hue to 45. So we can find that around here. So let's find 45, which is kind of pointing to about 2 o'clock on a clock. I then put the saturation to 15, so that's this one in the middle here, you can see going. So we're going to put that to 15 there, and then this one we're going to leave at 0. If we move on to the shadows, so the shadows I've put at 30, so again we'll just start it off and move that around to 30, which is a little bit more towards 3 o'clock. And the saturation we're going to move to 30. Again, feel free to change these as and when you want to. And then the highlight section, we're going to put the hue, this time to 225. So that's going to go right the way around this way, 225. So that's about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, somewhere around there. And the saturation, we're going to put 220. So you just move that along the line there. And that one I'm going to leave at 0. Oops. So if I now show you what that looks like off and on, so that was off, that's on, off, on, off, on. You can see it kind of adds warmth without making the whole photograph orange. So it's not affecting the whites up here. It's not making the whole photograph sepia almost. It just adds a bit of warmth in there. So I really love that. The next thing we're going to do is add some sharpening. So I always bring my sharpening up to around 80. Just so that the photograph is crisp, especially if you're posting to Instagram, that can sometimes be an issue. Noise reduction we're going to leave. And then if we go down to effects, we're going to add some grain. And I think this is what makes it kind of vintagey feel, a little bit rustic, a little bit like ragged, is that the right word? Just adds a bit of grit to the photograph. So I'm going to add 20. Now this is something, again, so that's where I would add it to. You can add it even more, even less. You might not be able to see from there. If you zoom in, so that's kind of without, and then that's with 100. So when I started adding grain, I'd add 100, and it was just far too much. I think around 20, 30, somewhere around there, it adds enough that it feels a little bit like a film camera, but it's not too much that it looks like a really, really old film camera. And the size I'm going to pull up to 50. So again, this is something you can play with. I'm going to pull that up to 50 and leave the roughness at 50. So that has taken me 7 minutes of filming. So probably about 5-6 minutes in total to actually edit this one photograph. And if you want to save that preset from there, you go to develop, new preset, and you can type it in here, make sure it's in the group user presets, make sure all of these are ticked, and then press create, and that will add your preset here to the side. So you can see that doesn't change at all because that's the exact same setting. So now what you can do, if you press the right key, you can go into the next photograph. So that's the before, that's with the Lima preset. So you can just see how much that adds, like it adds so much grit. I think grit is the word. It kind of makes the yellow less yellow. It makes the blue of the van just adds so much character. I just absolutely love this preset, and it's something that I've only started doing the past 5-6 months. So it's something I wanted to share and more people can use it. So again, you can use that one. And then what you can do, like I said, in terms of editing the photographs based on, editing the colours, based on the photograph. So what you could do here, for example, if you like the yellow and you want to bring that back, you can increase the yellow. If you think you don't actually like the yellow, you can bring it back down. The other thing you can do is you can make the yellow maybe a little bit more orange or maybe a little bit more green. So you can start to play about with the colours of your photograph and manipulate them into a way that you want. So I personally don't like to change photographs so much so that it looks insane. I know some people are really into kind of Photoshop and Lightroom and really changing a photograph, and I think it's so artistic and creative and amazing. For me personally, I like to just add a bit of personality without taking away too much of the original atmosphere, I guess. I don't know if I'm sounding way too woo-woo, but this is how I feel, I guess. I'm just going to turn the brightness up on my computer. So again, Lima, that's how it adds. And then what I've done here, so you can see below, I've got different settings. Well, I've got different versions of this preset. So if you change the colors and you quite like it, you can then do develop, new preset, and create a new preset. So what I've done is I've got lima. I've then got lima orange, which is a little bit brighter. It adds more color back to the orange. I've also got Huacachina less blue, and Huacachina portrait. So that was in the desert. I don't actually have a desert photo here to show you, but that was in the desert. So I was really adding back those orange tones. And then the portrait one, I took away some of the contrast. I took away some of the texture and the clarity and made it a little bit smoother. I've got lima less blue. So if you look at the sky there, that literally just alters the blue, because sometimes in some of my photographs, the blue is far too blue and I'm just like, no, it ruins it. So I might use that preset just to take away some of the blue. I've got lima Nazca. So this was photographs that I took in Nazca that I think I had a kind of different preset for that one. And then lima yellow. So this is where if I have a yellow building, I'll use the lima yellow and it just adds back that punch of a yellow. So for this one, I'm going to use lima yellow. So if we look at the difference between these two, so if we go to lima and hue, so you can see the yellow is -40, the blue is -10. On this one, exactly the same. So if we go to saturation, you've got the blue is up 40. On my yellow, the blue is up 40, but also the yellow and the orange are also up 40. And then if we go back to this one and luminance, I'm not sure if this has changed, blue -20 on the yellow, no, blue minus. So the only thing I've changed there is the saturation. I bumped up the yellow and the orange to make these photographs pop. So that's what I'm going to do for that one. If we go on to the next one, so that's the lima preset that I showed you. So before, after, before, after. Again, for this one, I'll probably use the yellow just to add back some of that yellow into the photograph there. Something you can do, like I said, if you want to play about with the colours, it's obviously something you can do. The other thing is to play about with the temperature and the tint. So for this one, for example, you might want to add a little bit of warmth and maybe even a little bit more pink. And that might just bring the photograph back kind of to life a little bit. So if we now look at the before and after, I literally pressed this preset. I then added some temperature and tint, and you can see the huge transformation there. I'm hoping you can see that, because for me it's so glaringly obvious and I think it looks so much better, so much more professional. But it also just, like I said, it adds that grit and that texture, and you can see it kind of adds a bit of personality back into the photograph. So let's move on to the next one. That's the lima preset, that's the lima orange, that one's quite nice. Huacachina, so that one adds a bit more orange, like a bit more warmth in the wood tones, so that's really nice. Less blue, I don't think that one, don't think that one, don't think that one, don't think that one. So I think for this one, I'm going to go for the, which one was it? Was it the Huacachina or the orange? I'm going to go for the Huacachina. I think I've already edited this, so it might be a completely different edit, and that's the good thing about presets, is that you can kind of play about with them every time. You can also increase the exposure if that's something you want to do, make it a bit brighter. Of course, I always crop, so this one, and then I go on to 4/5, which is what Instagram uses, and you can crop it there. Export that and it's ready for your Instagram feed. So I think from there to there, it's not, again, it's not a huge difference. It's not like, oh my God, wow. I just think it adds a little something. It adds the colour back into the photograph, and I think it's such a good preset. I bloody love it. I'm going to whiz through some of these. So again, that's the lima preset. Maybe we'll try lima yellow. I don't really want the yellows. I'm just going to do the lima. This one, so this is where the yellow buildings came in. So that was the lima preset. And then I think with these photographs is where I created this lima yellow, just to bring the colour back in the building. In the background there, you can see if I zoom in, if we zoom out a tiny bit more. So that's the lima preset, that's the lima yellow. Lima, lima yellow. So I'm going to do the lima yellow. This one, again, that's the lima preset that I've just showed you how to do. So that's the before and after. It kind of makes the yellow a tiny bit more orange. As you remember, we kind of moved the hue over a little bit. And now if you go on lima yellow, it's going to just bring back some of that yellow. And if that's not enough for you, you can, by all means, come over here and bring it all the way up. You can even move the hue back from over here, back to the yellow, if that's more where you want it. So you can really play about with the colours of these. This is one of my favourite photographs, these police officers standing in the main square in Lima, in the historical district. So that's my Lima preset. I think that's what I did for this one. This was a beautiful archway a beautiful building. And as you can see here, the Lima preset that I've done previously makes the yellow a little bit too orange for my liking anyway. You can see it kind of takes away that yellow tone. If we add on the yellow one, it kind of adds a bit more punch, but I still think that's a bit too orange tone. So what I would do is pull that back and probably increase the yellow even more just to really make that pop. And then I would crop this bit here because I don't like seeing the trees. So when you crop the 4/5 for Instagram, crop that down a tiny bit. And that's kind of where I would be at with that. So if you see the before and after, you can kind of see it adds a lot more punch to the photograph. So I love that. This is a pink building. Actually, let's keep it side by side. I think that does help. So that's the Lima preset. Again, adds a little bit of grit around here, a little bit of texture, a little bit of contrast. That's the orange, Huacachina. So these are just variations of the colours. That's the yellow one. I think for this one, I'd probably leave it with the Lima one, to be honest. This one, again, that's the Lima preset I taught you how to use. That's the yellow version. So you can see it just adds back that yellow that's missing. So I'd definitely use the yellow one for that. I think this is an example where I might have used the less blue option. So that's the Lima. There's Lima orange, Lima Huacachina, less blue. You can see there it just takes away the blue of the sky. I feel like it makes the building, because you can, I think I must have changed the colour of the whites as well, or the yellows or something there, because it makes the building a slightly more yellow and the blue less blue, and it makes the building pop so much more. So I love that one. That's also a less blue one, so I don't love that one as much. I think it's quite, oh, it's interesting because now I think that looks purple and that looks less blue. Anyway, so it's fun just to play about with these and figure out which one you think works best for each photograph. And again, if I go back to the Lima one, we can maybe increase the exposure a little bit. We can crop down. So if we do 4/5, let's crop that down a little bit up here. And you can see how easy that is to get kind of a quick edit on a photograph. And quickly, the last one I wanted to show you is a photograph of Jeremy. Obviously he's got a mask on, so it's not a great portrait, but I wanted to show you. So that's the Lima one. And if you kind of zoom in on his face, you can see this kind of, I don't know, to me it's just a little bit too much. So what I did was, okay, that's a completely different colour, but what I would do there is, if it's a portrait, I would take away the texture and take away the clarity. You'd maybe add 10 if you wanted to, but I just think that sometimes if you have too much texture and clarity, it can really just seem quite harsh. And also the contrast, so if you have your contrast up at like 70, that can seem too harsh on a portrait as well, and maybe bring that down to maybe 10, maybe 20, something around there. So that's what I would do in terms of portraits, just to make it a little bit less aggressive, I guess. I don't know if you can see the difference there if we zoom in as well. So around the face, I'm going to zoom out a tiny bit. So around the face there, so that's the original Lima, and that's kind of without the texture and the clarity and a little bit less contrast as well. So you can see the difference there. It's just a little bit softer, a little bit less harsh in the shadows. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video, learning how to create my Lima preset, which is what I've used for all of my photographs in the past 6 months or so, posting my photographs from Peru. Please do tag me in any photographs on Instagram, send me a message if you end up using this video, editing your photographs. I would love to see your versions and the way that you use this preset. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe for more videos. Let me know in the comment section down below as well if you want to see more editing videos from me in terms of Lightroom, in terms of presets, in terms of how to change colours and creating presets and exporting and all these kind of things. I love photography. It's one of my main passions. I just haven't created any videos around photography recently, so it was really great to get back into this. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.